Welcome to Sleepover with Yuri. If you've ever been categorized as a minority, whether from being an immigrant or LGBTQ or a person of color, well, guess what? You are in a majority on my show. At Sleepover with Yuri is a show that celebrates diversity, promotes equality, raises awareness, empowers minorities, and spreads love. I talked about racism last season. I'm going to talk about racism this season, and I will talk about racism until we don't have to talk about racism. Black lives matter, and will always matter. But who matters the most is my next guest, Asha Smith. Everybody. Hi,
Hi,
Asha. Well, finally it happened. I've been waiting for this sleepover since last season. And here we are having a sleepover.
Right.
Well, first of all, let me thank you for, because you have been the director of the show for 2 seasons now, and it's been such an amazing experience. We met in class when we
Right.
were in studio directing class together,
Right.
and I remember we clicked back then. I just loved your energy right away, and it was just a special moment, special time for me, and I'm just so happy that you have been with me throughout this whole journey all along, and it's been an amazing experience. So I'm happy that we're doing this sleepover together now.
Thank you, Yuri. And it was, and it has been an amazing experience. And class was crazy, but in a good way.
That's true. So what are you wearing? It's I can't see much the pillow. It's a PJ or?
It's a sweatshirt. I mean, it's a little chilly here, so I have this on.
So do you want me to put a heat on?
I would like that.
Heat on.
Actually, I like to be toasty, but since we're not at that place right now, and I decided to make my own toastiness and wear my sweatshirt. And I sleep in leggings a lot, which is what I'm doing, and I have socks on and keep my feet warm. So.
All right, so you actually do keep clothes on because 99% of my guests told me they sleep butt naked.
I mean, I may do that when it's hot, but not when it's cold.
Okay.
So,
So you do sleep naked too, basically.
that's a secret. Like what?
You look full of secrets today.
I am.
Throughout the past 2 seasons, I remember we talked about when I, had an episode on racism, and anytime whenever we would touch base on the subject of racism, you would always, and I know from place of love, you would always kind of, make a comment and tell me that Yuri, you need to educate yourself more and everything, which I agree with you. But also, for me, when it comes to racism, and I shared this in other episodes, when it comes to certain life experiences, like for me per se, when being gay and growing up as gay, that's an experience that some people need to read books and educate themselves to really legalize gay marriage. It took centuries of great minds to understand that it's okay to be gay. Something for me I was just born with that, so for me it was obvious from the get-go. Same with racism. I feel like, no matter how many books I read and what I hear on TV, if I haven't lived that life, if I haven't experienced, being a black person in the United States, I don't think I would know how it feels necessarily and what comes with it, unless I hear from someone who has experienced that and who can share with me openly and honestly. And I admire you not only for, like I said, I love your energy and everything, but I think you're an incredibly intelligent and smart person, on top of the fact that you are a power woman in my eyes, as a director, an attorney, and a successful artist and everything. So I felt like you would be the best person for me to talk about on this very sensitive, very, I would say not easy subject, but very important and very timely subject that definitely requires and demands more and more attention and awareness. And to me, it's still sad that we even need to talk about this still today, that it's still, unfortunately, for a lot of people, remain ignorant about the subject or remain being racist. So what is your personal, because Black Lives Matter happened, what is your personal feeling about it?
I think what triggered the current movement or the current protest is what happened to George Floyd. Everyone saw a man, African American man, murdered at the hands of officers. That he was helpless, that he couldn't move, that he begged for his life, and the last thing that he asked for, the last person he asked for was his mother, which I think, that's a primal thing, but it's also a thing about humanity. I mean, it's not just people in the United States that are protesting, it's people all over the world that saw that and that are protesting. But American racism, they've exported it to other places as well. And it's not just America. There's racism in Europe. There's racism in South America. There's racism in the Caribbean. I mean, it's all over the world. Largely, it's focused on people of African descent, but people of Latin descent also face it. And I don't necessarily consider them all separate from Black because there's a lot of African Latino people, but we only have 28 minutes. So I'm from a large metropolitan African American city. I'm from Detroit, and it's a predominantly Black city still, and it was when I was growing up. And there's a different mindset in Detroit and probably other places that have large African American populations where there's an infrastructure where people in power look like you. You're not walking down the street or thinking that you can't do anything because of color of your skin. You don't even think that way, which, I don't know, I've never been white, but possibly white people think like that about everything that in this country. You would think that everything is for white people based on all the images and just the subtle things that you see and the rarity that you see people of color in positions of power. But if you grow up in a city where that's your reality, your mindset is different. And I do think that has a lot to do with me being very comfortable not being pigeonholed and also, living a life with no limits. I mean, I want that for everybody, for every person, but especially for anyone Black that thinks they can't do something because they're Black or because society tells them that they can't. It's not to say that there are not challenges, there are, but...
That's a really good point, and thank you for sharing that. Something that, again, for me, growing up in Russia in the white community and coming here to New York, something that it doesn't come to my mind, it doesn't cross my mind until it does cross my mind. I remember when I moved to the States for the first time, I was in Virginia, and we went to, it was a program, went to the city, and the whole city was African Americans. And I remember that was something that, in my mind, I couldn't really understand why the whole city is just for Black people, and then there are cities where it's just white people, because something that that was like a shock for me. Why do people live separately, if it's two different complete tribes or something like that? That was when I experienced for the first time that I started thinking about race in the United States, where why do people separate from each other by color?
I mean, there's two things I have to say about that, or actually three. The first thing I have to say is the United States is racist. Everybody that I've met from Europe notices it right away, because there's people from Africa and other ethnicities in Europe and other places, and the atmosphere is different. That every single person that I've met, a white person that I've met from another country, when they come to the United States, it's noticeable. There's no denying it. Even if something is not said or done, they know it. So it's there. And to me, the fact that someone from outside can come in and point it out to you very directly, but you have white people here denying that it exists, as crazy to me. But I'll leave that alone. I don't necessarily think it's wrong for towns to be all Black or all white, if that happens naturally, if it's not a form of segregation, right? In Detroit, I didn't feel bad about being in a city full of all Black people. I mean, I liked it. But to know the history of what happened is that there were riots in Detroit before I was born. the civil rights movement happened there. There were marches and there were riots there, and there was what's called a term was called white flight when most of the white people left the city of Detroit. There was a lot more white people in Detroit before, and they fled to the suburbs, and that happened all over this country, right? So, from my perspective, it has not ever been African Americans or Black people, and I use both terms interchangeably, and I say Black more often than African American, but I'll answer to both. I don't think that it was Black people causing the separation, and that's not what I see even today, right? It's non-Black people that are causing the separation, at least in this country.
I have a very, based on what we just talked about separation, you said if it happens naturally, then it's fine. I have a question that I always kind of wanted to ask, but didn't feel comfortable enough to ask. And you don't have to answer if you don't feel comfortable or anything like that. So, there are a lot of stereotypes. Mm-hmm. A lot of stereotypes and a lot of coming from ignorance, coming from media. And, media, unfortunately, like you said, it's the white world. Like we look at the fairy tales and it's like all the princes are white, and then we watch the movies, and in the movies it's all the, romance is predominantly white. And then if it's a Black movie, then it's made fun of in a healthy, funny way, but it's always, like someone from the block, from the hood or whatever, with
not always,
not
but
always,
a lot,
but often,
And then when it's not that way, it's like shocking.
Yes. And that's why when you see something, I remember back home, we used to say, if someone tells you you are a sheep 100 times, you will believe you are a sheep. And if something that I see so many times is someone that, on the news, on TV, it's constantly, showing just one side, people start thinking, and I know I can speak because from my experience that I experienced here, that some white folks might think that, Black people or African American people, whatever you want to say, that's maybe, some trouble or some, people, they may carry guns on them, and some white people might have those stereotypes in their head and try to separate themselves. Would you say that Black people have stereotypes or things why would Black people not want to live with white people? Does that exist? Because I know that there are white people who would not want to live with Black people in the same neighborhood because of those stereotypes that Black people might, have guns or, just a huge, like, very basic stereotypes. Does it work the other way around?
I would say no, not the way you're describing it. I mean, if you were to ask a group of Black people, do they want to live next door to Ku Klux Klan members, I can emphatically say that 9 out of 10 of them would say no. I mean, you're not going to want to live next door to people who pledge to kill you just based on their race, based on your race. But the examples I'm talking about are like historically Black colleges and universities, which are where traditionally African American and Black students had to go because white universities wouldn't allow them into there. So they had to develop their own universities, but they're still heavily attended now by African American students that want to be surrounded by people that look like them and learn about their culture. Like, I don't see anything wrong with, going to an historically Black college or university if you're Black, and they don't not admit non-Black people, but I'm saying, like, to me, that's something that's affirming, and it's something that's still needed in a country that still tells you that you're less. Like, there's so much diversity and inclusion and equity conversations going on now in 2020, but we have been here like for 400 years. Like, I can literally trace one of my oldest ancestors to before 1776, before this country was incorporated. And yes, he was a slave, but that's how long that my ancestors and how long that I genetically have been in this country for over 400 years. So the fact that we're still having this conversation in 2020 is ridiculous.
Yeah, I agree. And it's sad. It's like, not to take the attention from you and the subject, but I just want to compare it just to, because I relate. for me, up to this day, and talked about this before, even though now we have legalized gay marriages. Oh, it's okay to be gay, but who's going to be responsible for the years before, for the traumas that we experienced as, I'm sorry, that I thought that it's really wrong to be gay because of the media,
And you
the
need
community.
to watch, and you guys need to watch, and not just you guys, but everybody that is concerned about having a just society needs to watch that, because there's people that still don't agree with that, and that will try and take away the equal rights that you should have, right? There's arguments about it, right?
It's really,
the
to me-
fundamental human right is what I believe. And there's people that would take that right away from you based on your sexuality. That's crazy to me. But we're still in a country that would do that.
Yeah, and it's really unfortunate and sad. And with this whole political climate and everything, when
It's not just a political climate, right? It's a lot of people that. It's not just politics. It's like who they are, and I don't know who they are or who raised them or why they decided to be that way, right? Because why do you care so much what someone else does with their life? You have your right to live your life the way you want to live it. So why doesn't someone else? To me, that's like common sense.
And that's a good question. And I talked about this, and I asked my guest last season when I had a guest, and we talked about racism, and we kind of agreed that it's something that has to come from upbringing. It has something that parents have to tell their children. It's something that has to be embedded in you.
No, I don't agree with that.
You don't agree with that?
No. I mean, I do think parents have a responsibility to show their children, the right path or whatever they think that would be. But when you become an adult, you take responsibility for the life that you lead and the choices that you make. So once you know there can be something different, and I find it hard to believe that people don't know, that they make a conscious choice to discriminate against other people, that's a choice. That's not natural. You don't have to do that. But there's people that choose to do that, millions of people that choose to do that. That's not, you can blame your parents for some things, but then when you become an adult, like, you got to do the work yourself. You need to, you have to do the work.
And I love that. I thank you so much for saying that, because up to this day, for me, I don't know why sometimes I underestimate my values and my beliefs, and I'm so happy you just said that, which contradicted what I said before, but then again, it really supported what I truly believe in. If I am smart enough, intelligent enough to understand that a human being and every single human has equal value the second we are born, if I am a person, not God, not a priest, the president, the governor, the judge, a person born into a middle-class family, if I have enough brains and enough heart, enough love to understand that you're a person, it doesn't matter if you're gay or straight or black or white or American or Russian or Italian, it doesn't matter, you're a person, and that comes first. Then why the fuck do we still argue and make decisions and about racism and homophobia and immigration? I don't get it. To me, it's and you're right. It's not about parents. It's parents never told me that. I came to this myself. So if I came to this myself, there's no excuse for other people not to. I'm not a prophet. I'm not a son of God. I'm a human being, a person.
I mean, that's what I believe. There's other people that believe what you said, that it's about education and things like that. And I just, I never read any place not to be racist or not to be homophobic or not to be, not to hate somebody because they look different from me. My parents would never told me that directly, but they showed me that by the way that they lived their life. But just me too, living my life and like watching people and interacting with them and not being scared, you know? Like I've been all over the world. I have different experiences because I did seek that out, but I do get that other people are shyer and they don't want to do that, but that's a choice for the most part, right? That's a choice that you make.
Ash, let me ask you this. So we talked about racism in general, but personally you, as a black woman, did you, well, I'm sure I'm not even going to ask if you experienced racism because we live in this country, in this world, I'd rather say. What is, for you personally, or in your opinion, is the most common racist remarks or comments or actions that white people do that white people don't realize? Like,
the famous or most frequent comment is, "You're so well spoken," as if like I'm not really sure what they expect, you know, like to come out of my mouth, depending on the situation. Oh, look, you're really smart, and like, okay, well, why wouldn't I be? Right? I don't think I've ever said to anyone, no matter what the race, gender, or whatever, that you're so well-spoken or you're so smart. It wouldn't be something that I would say to someone as a compliment or as a comment. And I find it weird that that people think that saying that is a compliment. Like it's not it's almost like an inverse insult, because to say like, as if I wouldn't be, but you look at me and you think like, what? Because if I can walk into a room, and I think most people can, and there'll be assumptions made because humans do that. They, you know, they make assumptions or whatever. But that is probably the top comment about being well-spoken or smart or like whatever, that, you know, it's like a compliment. But I'm just like, it's not just me. It's like basically every black person that I talk to and that I grew up with, we all sound the same. Like I'm not talking any different from them, right? It's like this is the way that we talk. So that's why it's so crazy to me.
And when you say it's weird, I was gonna say and it's sad. It's really sad. But I can see it just goes to show that all these labels and all the stereotypes that are portrayed on TV, for me, that's the way I see it.
Oh, that's a whole different conversation, TV, because there's people that made a career and that make money out of shopping stereotypes, right? There's people that develop stories and television shows based on a narrative about what certain people do and who certain people are. Like 9 times out of 10, if you watch a cop show, the cop is white and the person that's committing the crimes is either black, Latino, or Asian. But who's writing the stories and who's selling them, right? It's all kind of combined. And then you think about what Hollywood sells to the rest of the world. So they sell these stereotypes to the rest of the world. So when you go there, you know, as a person, as an American, like when I've traveled to other countries, they don't believe that I'm an American, because an American in their eyes is white, right? Or they'll say, but where are your parents from? But my parents are from here. Like everybody's from here for like hundreds and hundreds of years. But that is what America has sold to other countries, the idea of an American as a white person. And or I must be like a singer or entertainer. Like I remember one time, me and 2 girlfriends, we were out even this happened in New York, and we were going out, and we were wearing all black, whatever, but we were being cute. And we went into this restaurant or whatever, and the hostess was like, "Oh, I saw you guys on such and such show." And we're like looking at each other like, what?
Beyonce? You're Beyonce.
Not Beyonce, because this was years ago. But I'm just like, those kind of things, right? Because I know that
stereotype.
Yes, yeah. But that particular stereotype, like, how come she didn't think that we were like, I don't know, like that we were buyers from like Bloomingdale's or something like that, right? So I don't know. It was just, but those kind of things like happen like frequently and all the time. And you could have other Black women on your show, and I'm pretty sure we'd have similar stories.
And like I mentioned before, and I love everything you're sharing. By the way, it's eye opening. Thank you, Alexa.
Alexa's back.
I know Alexa's back.
Hi, Alexa.
Like I mentioned before, even because when we were little, when we were kids, a lot of things are, because it's hard for us to filter things because we're so young. And I always bring it up as an example because that's for me as a person from another country, the fairy tales. All the animation cartoons which are so world popular, all the Disney World movies, it's all the white princesses and white princes. That's it. You don't see, so little kids when they grow up, they don't see like Asian or Black or Latin. They don't, which is, it is what it is and we all understand. But overall, I'm just, even though it's sad to admit and realize and talk about a lot of things that we've just talked about, but what's really giving me hope and what makes me feel happy is that I know and you know and we both know that it doesn't matter if we have education, where we grew up, it's our responsibility to be or not to be racist or homophobic or anything like that.
Just be a better human. That's your responsibility.
Yes. And and don't blame the TV, the media, the parents, education. You got to blame yourself and take responsibility for yourself to be loving and caring and supportive and compassionate towards all races, all skin colors, all sexual orientations, and mind your own business. And let everyone be happy.
Mind your own business, Karen and Chad. That's another show.
So that gives me hope that a good person is a good person no matter what, no matter where and how. And, and if you're not a good person, then I'm sorry. Then sucks to be you. What can I say? Asha, I love you so much and so dearly. I'm so happy that I met you and that you're part of this project with me. And I know I wouldn't be able to do it without you. And I want to thank you for that. And thank you for the sleepover. And good night, everyone. Good night. And good night, Alexa.
Hi, Yuri.